Martin.
Hello. It's great to see so many people here today. I'm going to talk to you about some EdTech trends, and I'm particularly going to say quite a bit about blockchain, because you'll encounter, in fact, here in the BETT aircraft hangar, you may well encounter a few people who would like to sell you blockchain-based systems. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here really to pass on some of the information that we've learned from talking to our members and talking to companies who are active in this space. So without further ado, I'm really going to cover 4 areas today. So I'm going to talk about blockchain. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the B word. So, you know, I've said it now, that word there. Say it very quietly. I'm going to talk about how EdTech might be relevant to that. I'm going to talk about some of the socio-technical trends that are kind of coming to the fore in our world right now, and particularly the way that our kind of progressive view of education and education institutions is being challenged a little bit right now. And there's one particular context to that which I'll finish on, which is talking about the role of the librarian. So I'm very fond of librarians. Are there any librarians here today? No, I thought not. It's the wrong crowd, but let's press on. So if you don't know who we are, we run the Janet Network. If you're in a university or a college in the UK, we're your internet service provider. And we run a whole bunch of services on top of that. So probably the most well-known one is something called EduRoam, which is like wireless roaming, free wireless roaming for universities and colleges. What I do is I run a small team which is involved with future and emerging technologies. So we have the luxury of getting to play with robots every day. We get to do some very interesting things with brain-computer interfaces, which is my personal favourite right now. You might see 1 or 2 of these at BETT, but let's just ask ourselves, you know, what could you do? What could you do if you could see into the mind of the learner, or maybe the mind of the lecturer? This is my colleague Suhad, who's got a little gadget called the Emotive Insight here, which is a consumer-grade EEG headset. So, you know, if you've ever been to hospital for a brain scan, then they'll say, right, you need to put this hairnet on, there's lots of gel, it's all very messy. This thing only has a few sensors. It's got about 7 EEG sensors. But that's actually good enough to fly a drone with, believe it or not. So it's not, you're not going to use this to make a clinical brain diagnosis for somebody, but you can use it to fly a drone. How amazing is that? And we thought it would be fun to use it to analyse the brainwaves of university vice-chancellors. So we took this to the Universities UK conference last autumn, and we had a whole bunch of university vice-chancellors queuing up to have their brains analysed. So that was very interesting. And what we learned from that was that actually when you get people to translate, it's a really good way of making whole areas of the brain that were pretty much switched off light up. So anybody who's, you know, if you're from a college in Wales, for instance, or something like that, where translating between English and Welsh is a very common thing, or if there are a lot of students that you have for whom English is a second language, just picture all that time that translating is going on. It's their brain previously were pretty quiet, getting real work out. So it's very interesting to just get a little bit of a glimpse. And as I say, it's not a clinical grade instrument, but it's good enough to fly a drone with. And maybe you can get some insights in an educational context from something like this. But that's enough about that. I wanted to say a couple of words about blockchain. So you'll hear an awful lot about blockchain at the moment because of cryptocurrency. Blockchain is the technology that underpins the Bitcoin virtual currency. So you'll hear a shed load of stuff about this. There is real EdTech relevance, there is real teaching and learning relevance. we just did a little study where we rounded up a few of the things that could potentially be enabled by blockchain. But what you'll mostly hear of people talking about with blockchain is all of the opportunities. You'll hear people talking about what could be done with it. There is a lot of silicon snake oil. So what I'm also going to try and do today is pop a few of the bubbles as well. So it's very interesting, it's very powerful technology, but we're kind of at the stage that the World Wide Web was in the early 90s right now. Are you going to bet your university or your college on blockchain? Probably not. It'd be quite ambitious to do that right now, and you might get a nasty surprise. So where did we come from? Well, this whole Bitcoin thing needed a technology to power it. And what blockchain promises is the ability to create an unalterable record. It's got some cryptographic underpinnings, so you can check to see if a transaction is real, whether it's been forged or whether it's been altered. And you can trace the entire transaction history. So if you think about buying a house or something like that, where did the money come from? What changed hands and when? All of these things, being able to see them in a permanent, indelible record. And obviously there's some educational application to this where it could be quite attractive. I want to know that somebody really is a medical doctor, for instance. It would be quite nice to be able to just look it up. It's a thing, it's a matter of public record. And it's uneditable. So that was the other very interesting thing about blockchain. It's a database that anybody can add stuff to, and you can't come back later on and change it. And I'll tell you in a moment why all those things aren't true, actually. So this is what you will hear about blockchain, but it's not true. So hold that thought. And this is a nice crib from some work that Audrey Waters did in the Mac education site. Do go and look at Audrey's stuff because she's absolutely brilliant and she has a very good long read on blockchain. What can we do with it in research and education? I talked about the medical doctor example. There's quite a few other examples in a similar vein. So we could say, okay, we want to do credit transfer. You pitch up at another institution. Often if you want to do credit transfer, you need a shed load of pieces of paper. You need signatures on pieces of paper. Let's be able to do that in a smarter way. And let's imagine that I'm doing a course which involves a work placement. Wouldn't it be good if that could be recorded and accredited in a pretty seamless and transparent way? And right now the answer is everybody's got their own systems. I got my system, you got your system. Just even having a common ID that people can use to sign into something to record the details of experiential learning, work placements, things like that. So MIT came up with this blockchain-based project called BlockCerts, which has a lot of potential for doing some of those things that I've just talked about. BlockCerts is only one of a number of products which is competing in this space. So if you think, oh, well, actually what I've heard sounds quite promising, there isn't a market leader, there isn't a standard. And that's why I say that blockchain-based solutions are really at that kind of early 1990s stage. You might want to try things, you might want to experiment, but you've got to be aware that there isn't the equivalent of a USB standard socket that you can just plug this stuff into. Everybody is learning by doing, and people will go bust. So we talk about a permanent, irrevocable record, but actually some of the companies that are offering these products will go bust. And often what they've done is they've kind of tried to enclose blockchain and make their own version of it. So when they go bust, they'll take all your credentials with them, if you're unlucky. So that's a real trap for the unwary. And we're here at BETT talking about teaching and learning, but it's quite relevant in a number of other education and research contexts. So for example, the provenance of scientific results, that's actually quite a big deal. Where did the code come from? Where did the data come from? Who's cited your data? Who's using your code? All of lots of potential to use blockchain here, but you can't actually store a lot of this stuff on blockchain. I said it was like a database, but really it's a database that says, in this case, Martin's done some research and he's lodged his data over here. He's published some papers and they're over there. What you're likely to find in this context is, and probably also true in credentialing, you won't get the degree certificates stored in the blockchain because that would be very computationally expensive. What you'll find is the blockchain holds a reference to something that lives somewhere else, and that something still has to exist. So blockchain has lots of interesting characteristics, but it doesn't inherently replace those things that we talked about that it might help to enhance or accelerate. What else can we do with it? Very interested in what University of Northampton are doing. They're part of something called Blockchain Alliance for Good. And they're particularly interested in the kind of societal aspects. Let's say you're a student who volunteers. Right now, you volunteer and you get a good feeling about it. You get something you can put on your CV. And what Northampton is saying is actually, well, maybe we should take a leaf out of some of these cryptocurrencies, and maybe what we should do is we should actually give you a token, a redeemable token. So not an open badge, which I know many in this audience will be familiar with, not an open badge per se, but something you can actually take away and maybe you can spend it. Let's say as a student you volunteer in the community, you go and pick up litter, you help some people to manage their gardens, some old folk who can't do their garden anymore. Maybe you get some edu-coin back in return for that. And you can take that to your student union, you can buy a cup of coffee with it. And so all of a sudden you go from having a warm, fuzzy feeling to having that formally recorded somewhere and having something exchangeable that comes back to you in return for something which isn't paid work. So that again is quite an interesting thing. Could we do this? Could this work? Well, they're trying to build the system to do this right now. So we'll see how they get on. But I said that all those things I told you earlier on aren't true. So it is worth just keeping in mind what isn't true about blockchain, because you will hear an awful lot of hype about it. There's a chap called Gideon Greenspan, who runs a blockchain startup, who's written this article which very neatly summarises what you really need blockchain for. And the things you really need blockchain for, very specific. It's folk you don't trust are updating your database. Lots of people are updating it. If it's just one or two, you might just say, well, here's an ID, here's an API key, you can go and do this. There's loads and loads of people doing it. You probably aren't going to look that way. So there's a lot of these preconditions for a true blockchain project. And what we're seeing a lot of is that people say, well, blockchain's a bit zeitgeisty right now. Yeah, we'll add blockchain to the thing that we were doing already, and maybe it will make it a bit more marketable. But if someone tries to sell you a blockchain solution, and you can't tick these boxes, and if you can't tick all of them, it might still fly. But if you can't tick most of them, then maybe they're just doing a little bit of that blockchain washing and trying to make a perfectly pedestrian idea a little bit magical and sparkly. So, a brilliant example of this is the thing I've been standing in front of, Dogecoin. And this is a joke currency. So in the crazy world of cryptocurrency, when Bitcoin became popular, there was a guy who decided to monetize a meme. So this is the Doge meme, sometimes called Doggy. And he said, I'm going to create a cryptocurrency around this. Wow, much value will accrue. This is now worth $2 billion, which is an absolutely crazy thing for the world's first joke currency. So the world of blockchain and Bitcoin, if you're used to things that are really they're quite sensible, things in academia tend to change quite slowly and incrementally. The idea that a few years ago someone created a joke currency, which is worth over $2 billion, there's some real cognitive dissonance here, and I think we all have to be very careful as a community Who are we talking to? What do they really know? What can they really do? And how much of it is spin and marketing? And I said there are some issues. Well, the real blockchain is a public database. You can see all the transactions. People often think that Bitcoin transactions are anonymous. They're not. You can see them all. Quite a few people have been looking at that and saying, well, actually, maybe we want a version of blockchain where it's not public. And again, blockchain's immutable. You can't change anything. Well, quite a few people have been saying, it'd be quite nice if you could change things occasionally. And Accenture have created something they call a chameleon hash, which is exploiting some cryptographic shortcomings to let you edit the blockchain. So he said it was public, but maybe from some people it might turn out to be a little bit less than public. We said it was immutable. Well, actually it could be changed. The other big one is permission. So who actually can update this? We're talking about your academic record, which might well become semi-public. Who can post things onto that record? Who can update it? Who can change things? You might be a little bit uncomfortable if that was anybody at all. And I've been, like many of you here I suspect, I've been on LinkedIn, I've been described as a bicycle accident expert by somebody who I certified as a cheese expert in return. And you can picture something a little bit like this LinkedIn certifications happening with blockchain. What's to say that someone doesn't just come along and give you a joke degree? Well, of course, anyone could check to see that that degree isn't real. It's from a fake institution. It's all just a silly joke. But if you do have a truly permissionless system, who polices it? So these very interesting questions about blockchain, and really what a lot of blockchain development right now is about what I've rather cheaply called hippies versus nerds. So the hippies are the originators of all of this stuff, who have said, let's just let everybody loose, do anything they want, just go crazy. And the nerds, or perhaps the voice of reason, is all about coming along and saying, well, I don't think I really want it to be quite as open as this. I don't want it to be quite as free and easy, because I'm terrified of adopting it, if that is the case. And I think we'll see a lot more of the hippie versus nerd struggles over the next few years, much as we saw with the web. The early web went through a phase much like this. So I said I was going to talk about blockchain. I also wanted to talk about a couple of other trends. So I've got that B word there. I mentioned it once before. I think I got away with it. And chance my luck now and say something about it again. We hear a lot about, again, in the blockchain context, we hear a lot about how blockchain could finesse processes which are very manual, they're very paper-intensive. And things like transferring goods across borders, if you have to apply tariffs, if you have to deal with rules of origin, it would be quite nice to use that kind of technology to help finesse the process of getting stuff across borders, such as the new EU land border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And it will be fascinating to see how this plays out. But we have to assume that that will happen. We have to assume that it will have consequences. And that's really what I wanted to talk about in this section, is what if those consequences mean that actually fewer students want to come perhaps to the UK? Students would still like maybe a degree from an English university, but not necessarily wanting to come to the UK for it. We tend to plan, like I said before, we tend to plan for incremental change. We tend to think that tomorrow will be like today, but just a little bit different. A few things will be different. Brexit is probably the biggest example right now of something that could be an absolute step change. So we tend to think tomorrow will be like today, but the night will be a little bit shorter because now we're past the shortest day. We tend to think that it might be a little bit warmer because we're coming into spring. We don't tend to think, when we think about something like Brexit, we don't tend to think that it might actually result in a huge number of international students not coming to UK institutions. But that that is a very real possibility that we need to plan for. And at GIST, we're very interested in how technology can help here. You know, if somebody wants a degree from a UK university, they still want to study in a UK university. Can blended learning help? Very, very much so. If that institution is planning an overseas campus or a partnership to deliver its courses, can technology help there? Yeah, very, very much so. We're particularly excited about what's happening with purely online delivery. So here's a great one. This is from Udacity, the Stanford University's with them. They're offering courses now in self-driving car engineering. And this is a course they launched September 2016. Overnight, 20,000 people from all over the world said, yeah, I want to do this. In fact, it costs $2,500. I want to do this, and I'm prepared to put my money down. A couple of days later, that number was 30,000. So there's all this demand for new technologies, for education, for training, for certification of new technologies. How do our institutions, which are set up to respond in quite incremental ways, respond to something like this? And I actually stood here a year ago, and I put these two tweets up and said, look, you know, here's a challenge for the audience. What are you going to do about this? Will you go away and will you say, right, actually, maybe it's self-driving cars, the UK is about to license its first spaceports. Will there be some more space engineering courses that we start to offer? And, you know, the truth is, I'm back here a year later, and almost nothing's changed. All those people still want to become self-driving car engineers, and there still are only a handful of places in the world, of traditional institutions, where they can do that. So that question about how do our institutional processes adapt to sudden step changes, I think is a very interesting one. And maybe we'll have a couple of minutes to hear from you guys about what you think about this. So if you've got the Glister app up and running, do pop your own questions in. At GIST, we think that learning analytics has a lot to offer here. Learning analytics is where we take the data exhaust of your interaction as a student with institutional systems. You think about the typical institution, it's full of systems that you interact with, and even if you don't really think about it that way, just the simple act of swiping an ID card to go into a building, going through a barrier system, it doesn't necessarily have to be a library book being taken out, it doesn't necessarily have to be using a virtual learning environment. All of these things generate data, and traditionally we just throw this away. We just say, well, yeah, that's very interesting, but my server disk is full now. I don't know what to do, I'll just throw this data away. We've been working with nearly 100 universities and colleges and vendors to figure out actually how can we join the dots, how can we start to use this data, give some real insights. So, for instance, we're working with Tribal on this project. This is a nice Tribal dashboard where we're actually looking at, really, is a student starting to disengage? You know, we've not seen this guy at lectures much recently, not really using the virtual learning environment anymore. And this isn't about sending a robot after him. This is about getting his personal tutor, probably, to give him a ring and say, hey George, you know, is everything okay? So we think that this has real potential to address some of those. That's not the chasm of Brexit, because Brexit is a once in a generation, if not once in a century event. But to address some of those smaller chasms, maybe we'll call them potholes, that cause us problems on a day-to-day basis. But what we thought was important about this is to ground it in the student's own experience. So we built an app around it, which lets the student see what the institution is thinking about how things are going, and set their own goals. So if the feedback from crunching the data is actually, you know, you've got to buck your act up a little bit here, mate. Well, actually, what can I do? What goals, what study goals, which is the name of the app, what can I set myself? And then I can monitor my own progress towards that. So it's kind of like a Fitbit, but for learning. And we're very excited about this. I'd love to talk to anybody who's interested in maybe having a little bit of a conversation about how they could try this out at their institution. We are taking new beta testers on for this right now. And we think that learning analytics will actually underpin quite a lot more use of predictive AI. So you can hear from quite a lot of people here today about AI as a vehicle for helping recruit, retain, and helping students to get better outcomes. We think it's a joined up picture between all those institutional systems I talked about at first, and the sensor data, if you like, the Internet of Things, that the smart campus will actually be collecting information about, well, where does learning happen? Where does it happen best? For instance, are there lecture theatres which are simply too dark, or too noisy, or maybe they're just a little bit polluted because you're right next to a busy road? But put all of that kind of data together, and actually gives us a pathway, we think, ultimately to true personalised and adaptive learning, which is quite fascinating when you think that everybody on a course might find that they go through a slightly different version, a slightly different pathway. How do you assess that? How do you get feedback on that when no two people have taken exactly the same pathway through the curriculum? So there's some very interesting questions there. I'd love to hear what you think, and do come and find me afterwards, and we'll maybe have a chat about that. But there's a dark side to academia right now, and the dark side is that experts in science are increasingly being questioned in ways that I can't personally recall in my own lifetime seeing in a Western democracy like the one that we're studying today. So here's what for me was a kind of a litmus test moment when the US government started deleting climate data. And we would have thought of this as the scientific record, right? So we don't tamper with the scientific record, but that is something that we're starting to see now. And the result of that is radicalised librarians. Now, I would say if you manage to radicalise librarians, I think they're probably the hardest group in the world to do that to. When you get the librarians going, there's going to be trouble. So I think it's really fascinating to see what radical librarians have done, which is to say, well, we're not going to stand for this, actually. We're not going to let you do this. We're going to mirror the data with sites like Climate Mirror, and we're going to build the tools that will let other people do this and democratise and open up that process. And I think that whole question about what do you do when your values are threatened, when the values that we might think of as liberal and progressive values that we've lived by and the goals that we've worked towards in our careers in academia are threatened. It is time to mobilise, and maybe we'll be seeing a few more of these. But we need to make sure we understand what our true values are, and if they are threatened, what can we do about them? That's where I kind of wanted to start to wind down now. But I think that there is something about that, it's kind of a political challenge almost more than anything, which we as academics, as teachers, as administrators, need to reflect on, which is actually that there is a version of this which you can see in our own communities. When I say we're all librarians now, what I'm thinking about particularly is in the UK, we're seeing libraries closing at a fast rate of knots because there simply isn't enough money in the system to pay for libraries. Is there a role for our institutions in keeping those going? Is there a role for the people in the institutions? If you live in Somerset, and we've literally just seen this message here, nearly half of Somerset's libraries are about to close. Maybe our institutions in that region can do something about it. Maybe we can release people to help. Maybe the institutions can formally be a part of supporting the libraries. And libraries are doing an awful lot right now. There's maker spaces, there's hubs of digital innovation. How can we build on that? This is a great project called Glassbox Somerset, where the library has been flipped inside out and upside down. If you go to the Glassbox project, you'll find that the local code club runs from there. They're doing sessions for local businesses to help them get online, to help them understand new technologies like 3D printing. And, this potentially is a very powerful model for the future. We need to mobilise when things like this are threatened. We need to decide what we're going to do about them and how we're going to support them. So that's my. They're probably as much provocations as they are EdTech trends. Thank you very much for having me. I've been Martin. Do come and find me if you'd like to have a chat. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Martin. We're going to round of applause. And I think there's some questions coming up by the